right, Todd and Carly, and as I said, it's a result of the host comments about the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Now, Kimmel, he first made these statements the day after Kirk's murder. He began with this quote: "With all these terrible things happening, you would think that our president would at least make an attempt to bring us together, but he didn't." Then, on the following Monday and Tuesday, Kimmel claimed the MAGA gang was trying to capitalize on the murder and score political points. Watch.
Many in MAGA land are working very hard to capitalize on the murder of Charlie Kirk. We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from.
Kimmel received sharp criticism for suggesting the killer was a MAGA supporter when officials had already confirmed the suspect held leftist ideology, beliefs, and was increasingly radicalized in recent years. Still, some defenders say his comments were taken out of context. And, for example, SAG-AFTRA issued this statement in support, defending the artists who, quote, have their right to express their diverse points of view. But Sinclair Broadcast Group and Nexstar Media Group, who both own and operate local ABC affiliates, condemned Kimmel's remarks as inappropriate. The Sinclair vice chairman saying this, quote, "Mr. Kimmel's remarks were inappropriate and deeply insensitive at a critical moment for our country." And of course, President Trump celebrated the decision, saying in part, quote, "Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done." And the FCC commissioner, Brendan Carr, sounded off on the move with Hannity. Watch.
Late night shows, something's gone seriously awry there. They went from going for applause, from laugh lines to applause lines. They went from being court jesters that would make fun of everybody in power to being court clerics and enforcing a very narrow political ideology. And Nexstar, as you noted, stood up and said, look, we have the license and we don't want to run this anymore. We don't think it serves the interests of our communities.
And the Sinclair Broadcast Group, which operates 30 ABC affiliates, announced yesterday it would air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk. How now that Disney has decided to pull the show indefinitely, guys.
I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Oh, hell yes. That energy this morning, ladies and gentlemen, a glorious morning, and a morning that I am so profoundly proud of you and this movement that we have built together as we carry forward to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy. I knew him. I worked with him for 10 years, and I got to tell you, you got to hear me when I say this. What Charlie Kirk spent every last waking moment of his life doing was winning, fighting and winning cultural victories for the good and moral people of this nation. That's what he spent his life doing. That's what he died doing. That's what he would want us to do in this moment. He wouldn't want us to cower. He wouldn't want us to weep. He wouldn't want us to be weak. He would want us to fight on. And that is his mission, and that must be our mission now. So nobly progressed by Charlie. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the fight that we are gearing up for. And we just had one of the biggest, most consequential cultural victories in the history of the nation yesterday. And in a very small and humble way, this audience was a part of it. Today is Thursday, September 18th, 2025. Jimmy Kimmel has been ripped off air after his sick lies about Charlie Kirk. We certainly did play a strategic role and a tactical role in this. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about why this is important and why it must be celebrated. The left is trying to say that this is us being against free speech. It actually couldn't be more true that I want Jimmy Kimmel to keep speaking. I want Jimmy Kimmel to keep talking. I'm not against Jimmy Kimmel's free speech. I want him to keep going. Keep it up. Keep yapping. Keep exposing who you are. And we'll keep telling the American people and showing the American people and showing the corporations that make Jimmy Kimmel's little mealy mouth, weepy, anti-Trump drivel rants possible. Ladies and gentlemen, we know how to fight. Pastor Rob McCoy joins our program today. He's Charlie Kirk's personal pastor. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Make sure that you are going gold in this golden era. President Trump is in the United Kingdom right now and is just taking the stage for a press conference. So we're going to tune into that in just a moment. This is the time to go gold. President Trump was driving in a golden carriage yesterday. Quite interesting. The reason why the palaces of England are gilded with gold, and the reason why President Trump's buildings are gilded with gold, is that it is the indisputable store of value throughout all time. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends at Advantage Gold can set you up today. Advantage Gold is hosting a free event to show you how it all works, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. Text Benny to 85545 right now and claim your spot. That's Benny to 85545 right now. Don't wait for more losses. Protect your future right now with gold. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump is making his opening remarks right now in the UK. And I think that since these things are generally quite entertaining and wildly fun, I think we're going to watch this for just a little bit as we just sit back and glow and bask in the power of this audience and the cultural victories that we have notched off. If you even knew how bad it really was for the left, I know something you don't know. I got something to tell you. If you even knew how much fighting is going on and how much winning is going on behind the scenes, if you knew the conversations that we've been having with the administration, with the people who are leading our nation, and the positive change that is being affected right now, I want you to be uplifted. Tonight, actually, we'll be traveling to Phoenix for Charlie's funeral. I want you to be uplifted about this. Know that we are living through a revival. We are living through a spiritual awakening. And this is a cultural moment, a specific cultural moment where we have the opportunity to completely expose, defund, and destroy the left-wing, tyrannical, terroristic organs that would spit on our graves and laugh in the faces of our orphaned children when we die. They have proven that. This entire news cycle is part of that, and that is our enemy. And that is the enemy that we set our hearts, like flint, against. That is the ideology that must be ripped up root and stem from our nation. So you can see here, President Trump in a foreign land, in merry old England, that has a lot of problems, but also has a revolution of their own on their hands. As Tommy Robinson had at least million-man march. Do we have a number on that? Million-man march this past week. It was remarkable through London. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it really is. It really was beautiful, and very much to honor Charlie Kirk, his legacy of nationalism and adherence to his faith and beliefs. The people of the United Kingdom responded, and responded strongly. And now President Trump is there. Again, this is live. This is the mealing, weak Lib Keir Starmer, who's the prime minister there of England, not for long, I don't believe. And President Trump, of course, has been greeted like a conquering king, interestingly, by the King of England. And so what should we do, chat? Should we chat about Kimmel, or should we tune in here? What should we do? I think I definitely want to get President Trump's opening statements, perhaps, some questions from the press. I don't want to hear this bloviating lib. This guy is an actual communist and is, he's like a filthy socialist. He's not going to have a very long tenure as prime minister. The entire nation is turned against him. All available polling shows that he will be out as soon as there is a next election. And actually, not even the Tory party, but the UK Reform Party, like the MAGA party of the United Kingdom is the ascendant party here as nationalism and populism rolls through Europe and Europe is reawakened. It is a beautiful thing to see. So what do we think, producers? What are we thinking? Yeah, jump on over to Trump's opening remarks. Yeah, okay. ALX tells me that there was an estimated 150,000 people. Some of the organizers were saying that there were more. So let's go ahead and listen. I don't want to interrupt the president. We always allow the president to speak.
Of Normandy, to the founding of NATO, to the creation of technologies that have revolutionized our lives. Time and time again, it is British and American men and women side by side, changing the path of history and turning it towards our values, towards freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. In Britain, we take huge pride in that. And let's be clear, this relationship is not just about history, it's about the future. It's about the benefits it delivers now and for decades to come, to make our people safer and better off. We've shown today that we're delivering those benefits, improving people's lives. So we will go into that anniversary year more optimistic than ever and more confident than ever about our two great nations and what they can achieve side by side. Thank you. And it is now my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, very much.
Oh, that's freaking
Prime Minister Starmer, Melania and I are tremendously thankful for the wonderful hospitality that you and Lady Starmer have extended today at Chequers. Quite the place, I must say, quite the place. And we're grateful beyond words for the spectacular honor of the state visit yesterday at Windsor Castle, hosted by His Majesty King Charles III and Her Majesty Queen Camilla. These are two fantastic people. We will never forget it. As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history. That is thanks in large part to the traditions of British liberty, which grew up on these isles, these beautiful, magnificent isles, and were carried by our ancestors to the New World. We're forever joined, and we are forever friends, and we will always be friends. This enduring connection is why I was thrilled that the United Kingdom was the very first country with which we made a historic trade deal, and a very good trade deal. He's a tough negotiator. I think it was a better deal for you than us, but these are minor details.
It's a very good deal for both of us.
He's a great negotiator who will extend our unparalleled security alliance into the realm of economic security for the first time, and I look forward to finalizing it very soon. We'll have it done very quickly. We have also just signed a historic technology prosperity deal, one of a kind, to ensure our countries lead the next great technological revolution side by side. In fact, we just left the business leaders, the biggest in the world. Some are in this room right now. And that was quite a meeting we had on business and trade and technology. This trip has galvanized $350 billion in deals across many sectors, and we're committed to ensuring that the UK has a secure and reliable supply of the best AI hardware and software on Earth. And we supply that, and we'll make sure we supply it in quantity to the UK. And we also are joining forces on quantum computing and nuclear power, a natural partnership for close allies. The United States, as you probably have heard, is doing better than it has ever done in terms of business and investment. The stock market has hit a new high, as you know, and that's for many, many days out of our fairly short 8 months. And we seem to be hitting new highs, and I think we're going to do much better even as time goes by. Jobs are at a record, and most importantly, we have more than $17 trillion, $17 trillion, and this is during an 8-month period. being invested in the country, which is not only a record, but if you compare $17 trillion to the last year of the Biden administration, they did $250 billion. They didn't do $1 trillion for the 4-year period. We did $17 trillion of investment coming in. A lot of it's because of tariffs, and a lot of it's for a lot of other reasons, but there's never been anything like it. It's an economic superstar. That's what's become. It was mismanaged and badly handled for a long period of time, but it's not badly handled anymore. So that's a record. And remember, that's up until 8 months. We have another few months to go, and that number is going to get significantly higher, especially if we win a certain case that we're waiting to hear. That will be something like the world has never seen. I want to congratulate the United Kingdom on making the vital commitment to spend 5% of GDP on defense at the NATO summit this year. We've worked together very closely in so many ways. I'm very honored to tell you that we've solved 7 wars, wars that were unsolvable, wars that couldn't be negotiated or done. The U.S. has done 7 of them. The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down. It was going to be Russia and Ukraine, but we'll see how that turns out. But that turned out to be, I thought it might be among the easiest of the group, but we had settled just about every conflict. And as you know, we're working very hard on Israel and Gaza. Oh, that's happening over there. Complex, but it's going to get done. It'll all get done right. And likewise, Russia and Ukraine will get done. But you never know in war. You know, war is a different thing. Things happen that are very opposite of what you thought. You thought you were going to have an easy time or a hard time, and it turns out to be the reverse. As we saw in the unforgettable parade yesterday at Windsor Castle, what a place it is. The British Armed Forces carry on one of the finest military traditions in the world, one of the greatest marching bands, one of the most magnificent sights I've seen. I know that our service members look forward, and we do look so forward to working even more closely with yours as you push toward that 5% goal. And I think, Mr. Prime Minister, you're just about there. You're going to be there very quickly, along with a lot of other great countries. I want to thank NATO and our wonderful head of NATO, who's really worked very hard, Mark, for the job they've done. As you know, NATO was at 2% GDP, and they didn't pay it. Now they're at 5%, then they pay it. And we appreciate that. And we're sending a lot of weapons to NATO. NATO is paying for those weapons in full. But we're sending them, and we're doing a great job at getting them what they need. And we appreciate the fact that they're taking care of it, because the United States is into that war for $350 billion. And just really very sad. It just got out of control. They didn't know what they were doing. But over the generations, British and American warriors have shed their blood side by side in defense of liberty and freedom. And that's why it's so imperative that the United States and the United Kingdom stand together for these fundamental rights and values of the English-speaking world. And we've always stood together, and we will continue to. Just last week, a great American, Charlie Kirk, was heinously assassinated for speaking his mind. He was a great young man, incredible future. Some people said he might be president someday. I told him, I said, Charlie, I think you have a good shot someday at being president. And he just wanted to take care of youth. He loved youth. I've never seen anybody relate to youth like Charlie, and they related to him, and they're devastated. But I appreciate the many British citizens who have offered their condolences. And again, Charlie was a great person. We'll be going out to a service on Sunday. I'll be leaving with some of the people in this room just to celebrate Charlie and all that he's done. So incredible. Beautiful. Never seen anything like it. But I hope that together our nations can lead a movement to defend the glorious traditions of freedom on both sides of the Atlantic.
Thank you, Trump.
There could be no greater tribute to the immortal bonds of affection and loyalty that unite the British and the American people for all of time. We have a relationship like no other. It will always be that way. We will always be united. We'll always be together. And I just want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for the great job I think you're doing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We're going to take some questions. I'll call 2 or 3 to start with, and then I'll pass over to the President. I've got Chris Mason from the BBC first. Chris.
Thank you both. Chris Mason, BBC News. Mr. President, the UK is expected to recognise a Palestinian state in the coming days as the killing in Gaza continues. It often seems that you're the only person that Israel will listen to. What more can you say to them to tell them to stop? And why is the UK's position on a Palestinian state, in your view, wrong? And Prime Minister, what will the recognition of a Palestinian state actually achieve? Is it not just gesture politics to appease people in your own party? Thank you both.
Well, Chris, let me just start with that, because we discussed this amongst other things. We had the best part of an hour, I think, upstairs earlier today, just one-to-one, going through a number of affairs, world affairs, in private. And we absolutely agree on the need for peace and a roadmap, because the situation in Gaza is intolerable. The hostages have been held for a very, very long time, and they must be freed. And we need aid to get into Gaza at speed. And so it's within that context of a plan for peace, which we're working hard on, which not only did we discuss this morning, but our 2 teams have been working together on, that the question of recognition needs to be seen. And so it's part of that overall package, which hopefully takes us from the appalling situation we're in now to the outcome of a safe and secure Israel, which we do not have, and a viable Palestinian state. Thank you.
Well, simply, I want the hostages released now, right now, not 1, 2, we'll give you 3 more tomorrow, and, you know, like it's been, but we're the ones that got all the hostages released. We got many, many came to the Oval Office, and I've heard stories like I've never thought even possible. There was no humanity, no anything. I said to them, I said, was there any warmth shown during this stay? Like they offered you a little extra meal, they gave you a little smile, and they said, don't worry, you'll be okay. And every one of them said, not even a little bit. Amazing, you know, to think that during this stay, long stay, in some cases, we had a man the other day, 451 days he was there. I always ask that question. And was there any warmth shown? Just a little word of, you know, encouragement. And the answer is every time, absolutely not. I'm shocked to hear it, because in the worst cases, there's always somebody that comes through. We have to remember October 7th, one of the worst, most violent days in the history of the world, not just there, the history of the world. And I got to see the tapes, and I wish I didn't see them, actually, but I got to see them. And I want an end. I want the hostages released. And I think it's going to be okay. But it has been a brutal period of time. But this has been going on for a long time. This is not something that's over the last year, 2 years, but this has been for decades and decades. But we want it to end. We have to have the hostages back immediately. That's what the people of Israel want. They want them back. And we want the fighting to stop. And it's going to stop. But a lot of bad things. You know, Hamas said that they're going to put the hostages up as bait. They're going to put the hostages in front of any attack. And that's pretty brutal. We haven't heard that one in a long time. So we have to remember that. So I have a disagreement with the Prime Minister on that score. Okay? One of our few disagreements, actually.
Great. Can I take Jack from The Sun? Jack.
Thank you both. Jack Elson from The Sun. Mr. President, in the 9 months you've been in office, you've been incredibly successful in all but eliminating crossings on your southern border.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, illegal migration is at record levels in Britain. The Prime Minister is trying to tackle that. What advice would you give to the man standing next to you on trying to stop illegal migration in Britain? And Prime Minister, if I can just ask, the President is all about drill, baby, drill in terms of trying to secure American energy and cut bills for Americans. Meanwhile, you are turning Britain's back on oil and gas in favour of renewable energies, such as wind turbines. Why do you think that you are right and he is wrong?
So we had millions of people flowing in, totally unchecked, totally unvetted from the Biden administration. 25 million, in my opinion, that would be about 25 million. They came from prisons. They came from mental institutions. They were gang members. They were drug dealers. They came from the Congo. They came from all parts of South America. They came from everywhere. Think of it. Prisons from the Congo being released into the United States. Prisons opened up in Venezuela and many other countries pouring into the United States. And I couldn't believe it. And one of the reasons I decided to run. I decided to run because I don't want to be controversial, but you see what's happened and you see all the information that's come out. We won in 2020 big. And I said, let's run. We got to run because I saw what was happening. And the worst thing that I saw was all of these people. You know, we've already solved inflation. We've solved prices. Oil is way down. Energy is way down in the United States. But what I saw happening with millions of people pouring into our country, I couldn't stand to watch it. And we've done a great job. Nobody, if you've seen the last, I appreciate your question, by the way, nobody, absolutely zero, and I'm not even sure that's possible, but it's a very liberal group that come out with those statistics. The last 3 months, we had zero. From millions of people a year ago, we had zero people enter our country illegally. And we do have people coming in legally through a legal process and testing and lots of other things. I think it's very important, and we speak about it. And I think your situation is very similar. You know, you have people coming in, and I told the Prime Minister I would stop it. And it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it's going to destroys countries from within. And we're actually now removing a lot of the people that came into our country. It's a very hard chore. We were given a very, very bad hand. Millions of people came in from prisons and mental institutions. We have to remove them. And we are removing them. We have no choice. And I feel very strongly about it. Thank you very much.
Jack, let me just deal with the question of returns, because this is obviously an issue we're taking incredibly seriously. We've struck a number of deals, both on cooperation with other countries, because this is a problem right across Europe, to tackle the problem of actually breaking up the gangs that are running this trade. We have had a record number of returns, over 35,000 now since we came into office. That's the highest number for the best part of 10 years. We struck the returns arrangement with France, and notwithstanding the challenges to that scheme, which you've seen in the last few days, a flight went off at 6:15 this morning, successfully returning someone under that scheme. So that is an important step forward. Obviously, there's no silver bullet here. There's a range of things that need to be done. But given the challenges of returning people, it is important that we're able to prove it can be done. It was done. It was done early this morning. So I can confirm that that flight went. It went successfully. And I'm pleased about that. Now we need to ramp that up at scale, which was always envisaged under the scheme. But it's very important that we have been able to prove that the proof of concept, if you like, that this can be done, and will continue in that way. On the question of energy, firstly, let me be really clear that I am absolutely determined to ensure that the price and cost of energy comes down, so that bills come down both for individuals, for families with their household bills, but also for business, because this is so important. The mix will include oil and gas for many years to come from the North Sea. We've been clear about that for some time, but we also need to mix that with renewables, and it's the mix that's really important. And the approach I've taken on this is the same approach that I take to many other things, a pragmatic approach. Thank you, Jack.
I would like to say that we inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. We had inflation, the likes of which we've really never seen. They say 48 years, and I'll accept that, but I really don't. We had the worst inflation in the history of our country. And we had a expression that I used a lot, drill, baby, drill. And as you know, we brought fuel way down, the prices way down. And we don't do wind because wind is a disaster. It's a very expensive joke, frankly. And we got our energy prices way down. That brought the inflation way down. And now we have very little inflation. And we have a very, very strong economy. So that was very important. Drill, baby, drill. And you have a great asset here. And we spoke about it. It's called the North Sea. The North Sea oil is phenomenal. And I hope, because I love this country. You know, my mother was born in Scotland, and the Hebrides, Stornoway, that's Syria, Scotland. We were talking about it. And I want this country to do well. And you have great assets that you're going to start using, I believe, under this prime minister.
Thank you. And I've got Matthew from The Economist. Matthew.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Mr. President, you say that President Putin has let you down. Have negotiations run out of road? And what are your next steps to compel an end to this war?
Well, he has let me down. I mean, he's killing many people, and he's losing more people than he's killing. Yeah. I mean, frankly, the Russian soldiers are being killed at a higher rate than the Ukrainian soldiers. But, yeah, he said, let me down. I don't like to see it's death. You know, it doesn't affect the United States. We have, other than unless you end up in a world war over this thing, you could. This was a thing that would have never happened had I been president. If I were president, it would have never happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. Most people agree it didn't happen, nor was it close to happening. And I spoke to President Putin about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. I've said that many times. It was. But he would have never done what he did, except that he didn't respect the leadership of the United States. They just went through the Afghanistan total disaster for no reason whatsoever. We're going to leave Afghanistan, but we're going to leave it with strength and dignity. And we're going to keep Bagram, the big air base, that one of the biggest air bases in the world. We gave it to them for nothing. We're trying to get it back, by the way. Okay, that could be a little breaking news. We're trying to get it back because they need things from us. We want that base back. But one of the reasons we want the base is, as you know, it's an hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. So a lot of things are happening, but I am very disappointed in the fact that that one's not settled. To think that we settled Azerbaijan and Albania as an example, it was going on for years. It was never going to be settled. If you remember, the prime minister and the presidents, they were there for many years. They said, when they were in my office, we settled. And they started off at both sides of the Oval Office, so far away. I didn't know you could be so far away. And as we were together for an hour, they kept getting closer, closer. And by the time we finished, we all hugged each other. And one said, I've been in this position for 22 years, and all I've done is kill their people. The other was there for 7 years, and all he did was kill their people. And we got it settled. And we did others, as you know. The Congo, we settled the Congo with Rwanda. That was going on, and that was a machete war. That was a gruesome war. Many people, close to 10 million people killed. We got that settled. My biggest disappointment, but it's, you know, look, we did 7, and most of them were not thought to be settleable. We did India and we did Pakistan. That's 2 nuclear. That was purely for trade. You want to trade with us, you're going to have to get along. And they were going at it hot and heavy. But the Russia situation, I hope we're going to have some good news for you coming up. But again, it doesn't affect the United States. And it doesn't so much affect you. Of course, you are a lot closer to the scene than we are. We have a whole ocean separating us. But I will say this, it's millions of people have died in that war, millions of souls. And they're not American. The soldiers, mostly soldiers, as you know. The soldiers are being killed at levels nobody's seen since the Second World War. But they're being killed, and I feel I have an obligation to get it settled for that reason. Thank you.
And just to add on that question, because we have to put extra pressure on Putin. And it's only when the president has put pressure on Putin that he's actually shown any inclination to move. So we have to ramp that pressure up. I think it's important to have this conversation in the context of what's happened in recent weeks. We saw damage and bombing to the British Council in Kyiv. These are targets that it was thought until recently were not targets that would be hit. The British Council, the European Union Embassy, the Council of Ministers, where President Zelensky's ministers work was hit. Again, these were thought to be places that wouldn't be hit. And then the incursion into Poland last week. And if you put that together, what you can see is either an emboldenment or at least an increased recklessness on Putin's part. And that's why I said earlier that they're not the actions of someone who wants peace. So we have to ramp up. And we discussed earlier today, we have built the coalition of the willing with British leadership and French leadership, stepping up with military planning in the seas, in the sky, on the ground, and ramping up what we do with the Ukrainians themselves. And of course, that taken with an American guarantee is now an example, I think, of the challenge of Europe stepping up to the plate, which it has done in the last few months, to show through what we and the French have done that we're prepared to take the lead in this and take the necessary measures.
But that's a war that could have been a third world war, and I don't think we're going to be there now. But that was heading to a third world war, and what a shame it is. What a shame it is.
Mr. President, do you want to call some of the...
I would love to call a few of them. Bev, do you want to have a question?
I've got to come back.
TV News. Thank you. Having been in DC for a few weeks, it's really interesting to see how you run the country as a proud Christian leader. And it really begs the question to the Prime Minister, if you don't mind, are we still a Christian country? But also...
when you say we, are you talking here or...
Here. The UK. I'm still British. I might live in America. I'm still British. But also,
I can't give you that answer.
That's for the Prime Minister. But also, despite what we talked about in Scotland a few weeks ago, we still have 12,000 people a year here being arrested for social media posts, for free speech violations. Does that not remain an important area that there is still a lot of disagreement on?
I'd like to have you answer that.
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of a Christian country, I was christened, so that is my church has been all my life, and we are, that is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud that we're able to do so as a country. And on free speech, that has long lived in this country, free speech. It's one of the founding values of the United Kingdom, and we protect it jealously and fiercely, and always will, and we will bear down on any limits on free speech. I draw a limit between free speech and the speech of those that want to peddle paedophilia and suicide social media to children. And therefore, I'm all for free speech. I'm also for protecting children from things that will harm them, paedophiles, those that peddle suicide, which has had a terrible consequence for individual, particularly teenagers. And so that's the balance we strike. But we have had freedom of speech in this country for a very long time, and we will always protect it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brian, please.
Thank you. Prime Minister, it's good to see you again. You have a beautiful country. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Two questions. One, just recently, President Trump labeled Antifa domestic terrorists. Would you consider doing something like that in your country?
Well, we obviously will take decisions for ourselves. I don't want to comment on the decisions of the president, but we take our decisions ourselves.
And my question to you, President Trump, is there any update on the auto pen?
Yeah, it's just gotten worse from their standpoint. The people that used it, and one in particular, one person, was never told by Biden to do it. Only spoke to Biden twice, and that was just talking about the weather, not talking about any order. And he was taking orders from people other than Joe Biden. Joe Biden wasn't giving those orders. You know, Joe Biden didn't believe in open borders. He didn't. I've known him for a long time. He was never the brightest bulb in the ceiling, as we know. You can go back 40 years ago and you'll see that. Go back and take a look at the hearings on Justice Thomas, and you'll see that very much. But he didn't believe in open borders and all of this nonsense that they're peddling now, which is why they're not in office any longer. It's a shame. The auto pen was illegal. It was illegally used. He never gave the orders. He never told them what to do. And I guess the only one he signed, or one of the few he signed, was the pardon for his son. But you had the congressman who, when they got the information, they found out they were guilty, and they deleted and destroyed all information, everything. You couldn't get any of it. They found out that Nancy Pelosi actually was offered the 10,000 soldiers and she turned them down. They found out many things that were very bad. So they deleted and destroyed all information. You talk about freedom of the press and freedom of speech. How about that one? And there's not a thing. This is after a year and a half of hearings. They destroyed everything. And somebody's got to be held responsible. So Biden, what he did is they knew, I don't think he knew, but somebody knew. I don't think Biden had a clue about anything, if you want to know the truth. But they gave a pardon to those Congress people. They gave a pardon. Those people are so guilty. They gave a pardon, but Biden didn't know about it. The people, whether it's Lisa or any of those people in there that really ran it, I know them all. And they're sick people. They're smart people. They're very smart. They're probably brilliant, but they're sick in ideology. And they were running the auto pen. And it was totally illegal what he did. And I hope it's going to be so adjudged.
You want to take one more, then I'll
Okay.
go back to some British.
Let's see. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. In the deal that you're working on for the Chinese to sell TikTok to an American buyer, are the Americans going to have to come up with their own algorithm, or are they going to continue to use the successful but addictive Chinese algorithm?
So what we're doing, and we're speaking to President Xi on Friday to see if we can finalize something on TikTok, because there is tremendous value, and I hate to give away value, but I like TikTok. It helped get me elected. In fact, Charlie said, "Sir, you ought to get on TikTok. You'd be great." I said, "Really? Tell me about TikTok." And we, as you know, we did unbelievably well with youth, like at a level that no Republican has ever even dreamt of. And in what, look, I think we won it for a lot of reasons, but that was a reason we won the election by such a big number. TikTok has tremendous value. The United States has that value in its hand because we're the ones that have to approve it. I specifically get the right to approve it. The people that are investing it are among the greatest investors in the world, the biggest, the richest, and they'll do a great job. And we're doing it in conjunction with China. But we are getting, the United States is getting a tremendous fee plus, I call it a fee plus, for just making the deal. And I don't want to throw that out the window. I can say this, that you'll have a lot of very unhappy youth. And I use TikTok very legitimately, very straight, just statements every day, little statements, short statements. "Sir, make it short, please." And TikTok Jack, we call him. It was pretty good. Did a good job for me, I guess. But no, I'd rather reap the benefits. I mean, the kind of money we're talking about is very substantial. And it'll be owned by all American investors and, the best investors and the very rich people and companies are going to be owning it. Very, very straight, very legitimate companies, and really companies that love America. So they're going to be owning it. It's a big thing. And on a much bigger scale, and probably that's why we were able to get that, but on a much bigger scale, we're pretty close to a deal. We may do an extension with China, but it's an extension based on the same terms that we have right now, which are pretty good terms.
And my question for Prime Minister Starmer, if you feel so strongly about officially recognizing Palestine for statehood, why are you waiting for President Trump to leave the country? Why can't you just do it right now? And isn't there a risk in rewarding Hamas with that?
Well, let me be really clear about Hamas. They're a terrorist organization who can have no part in any future governance in Palestine. And what happened on October the 7th was the worst attack since the Holocaust. We have extended family in Israel. I understand firsthand the psychological impact that had across Israel. So I know exactly where I stand in relation to Hamas. Hamas, of course, don't want a two-state solution. They don't want peace. They don't want a ceasefire. I'm very clear where I stand on Hamas. Okay. On the question of recognition, I made my position clear at the end of July as to the timing, which has got nothing to do with this state visit. And I've discussed it with the president, as you would expect amongst two leaders who respect each other and like each other and want to bring about a better solution in the best way that we can. Thank you so much. Can I go back then to Robert at ITV?
Robert Peston, ITV. Mr. President, you uniquely, you alone in the whole world, have the power to persuade Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop the demolition of Gaza City, to stop the starvation of Palestine, and to stop the killing of civilians. If not now, when will you exercise that power to tell him to stop?
Sure.
And then for both of you,
but you do understand about October 7th.
You do understand. So believe me, I understand.
One of the worst days in the history of humanity. What happened? I have seen the tapes. Babies that are 4 months old and just chopped up to pieces. And you've seen the tapes, and I've seen the tapes. You're a professional, and so am I. And people forget about October 7th. I can't forget about it. So I want it to end, but I want the hostages back. I don't want the hostages used as human shields, which is what Hamas is threatening to do.
But as soon as they're back, that's the moment you will tell Netanyahu
well,
to stop.
It would certainly help, but I have to have the hostages back. And I don't want them back piecemeal, as I said before. I want them back.
And on a separate issue, free speech, your Vice President, Vance, said that free speech is under attack in the UK. Do you agree with him? And Prime Minister, we saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else. And he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent. Yeah, please go.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, on the question of Charlie Kirk, can I just express how shocking that is, I think, to everybody who believes in free speech and in democracy. It sent shockwaves through the world. And I know that he was a friend of the president, and I reached out straight away to the president because I understood how impactful it'd be on him and his family. And we all need to be absolutely clear about that. Whatever our political views, it is shocking and is to be condemned. On free speech, not much to add to the answer I gave earlier. This country's had free speech for a very, very long time. It is part of who we are as a country, and it is the values that we fought for. We fought for it during the Second World War alongside each other. So we need no reminding of the importance of free speech in this country. Thank you, Robert. And I go to Beth for the final question, please. Beth.
Thank you so much.
Sky.
Thank you, Beth Rigby, Sky News. Thank you, Prime Minister. If I could start with you. Prime Minister, President Trump has said he's ready to impose major sanctions on Russia if NATO countries stop purchasing Russian oil. He's got a point, hasn't he? Is that what you now believe is needed to bring Putin properly to the table? And what's your message to the President on US sanctions? And Mr. President, if I may, the King praised your personal commitment last night to finding solutions to the world's most intractable conflicts. You have invested much of your time and effort in Ukraine. But even as you seek to broker a deal, President Putin is escalating the war. He's firing drones into NATO airspace. You say he has let you down. Was it a mistake to invite him to Alaska? Do you regret it?
No.
And is it time to squeeze him, sir, and scare him and impose sanctions? And finally, if I may, the elephant in the room, Lord Mandelson, he is no longer the ambassador. Do you have some sympathy with him that he lost his job over historic links to Jeffrey Epstein? Thank you very much, sir.
I don't know him, actually. I had heard that, and I think maybe the Prime Minister would be better speaking of that. That was a choice that he made, and I don't know. What is your answer to that?
Well, I mean, it's very straightforward. Some information came to light last week which wasn't available when he was appointed, and I made a decision about it, and that's very clear. On the question of the pressure on Putin and on Russia, which is obviously really important. Look, I think it is a challenge to Europe. There are a number of European countries which are too reliant on energy from Russia. The UK actually obviously has almost got nothing at all, but we do need to bear down and work with our European counterparts here. There are one or two countries, I think, that do need to look again at the question of energy. There's no one silver bullet here. We do have to have a wider suite of sanctions, which we've put in place a number of times, working across Europe and with the United States. And of course, we must, and we are, making sure that Ukraine is in the strongest position now, because one of my long concerns here has been that whilst we talk about a ceasefire, and we all want a ceasefire, and we talk about what might happen after a ceasefire, we mustn't forget that Ukraine needs our support now. And we've said we stand with Ukraine from the start to finish, and that means we must continue to supply them with what they need in order to fight this war, which of course resulted from and is a result of Russian aggression. We have particularly done the sort of leadership role in the coalition of the willing, so that if there is a ceasefire and if there is a deal, and I do hope there is, that is then lasting and not then broken, because given previous history, I don't trust Putin. Thank you.
Very simply, if the price of oil comes down, Putin's going to drop out. He's going to have no choice. He's going to drop out of that war. And when I found out that the European nations were buying oil from Russia, and as you know, I'm very close to India. I'm very close to the Prime Minister of India. I spoke to him the other day, wished him a happy birthday. We have a very good relationship. He put out a beautiful statement too. We have, but I said, you know, I sanctioned them. China is paying a very large tariff right now to the United States, but I'm willing to do other things, but not when the people that I'm fighting for are buying oil from Russia. If the oil price comes down, very simply, Russia will settle. And the oil price is way down. You know, we got it way down. We're drilling and we produce more oil than anybody else in the world. We're doing a lot. But I was disappointed to see that. And the Prime Minister was disappointed to see that. And it wasn't him. It was other countries. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't. That's not playing fair with the United States. And we can't have that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing. Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he was a no-talent ass clown, says Donald Trump. In Trump's own way, he's, of course, 100% correct there. But we know some of the backstory of this, and, well, I got to tell you, it has been an exciting last 24 hours. And we want to get to all of it. We have so many important things to tell you. We have some secrets to let you know about on this program. We have some behind the scenes that has been very exciting over the last 24 hours, and a, of course, continuation of Charlie's work. What is Charlie's work? What would Charlie want us to do now? Well, let me tell you, I went through some really hard times with Charlie. There were some major attacks and some major battles and some major losses. Everybody remembers 2020. You imagine how hard that affected Charlie? I mean, how demoralizing that all was for all of us. I mean, it's terrible. And what would he always say, dude? That guy would come up to me when I was feeling down. He would say, well, now is not our time to be sad. We need to go 50 times harder. This is constantly. I never once saw Charlie like actually truly demoralized. I never saw him cry. I never saw him broken. I never saw him in a slump. And this is the time for us to pick up the mantle. And what was the mantle? Charlie Kirk said one thing with his life more than anything, which is, I want cultural, Christian, moral, good victories for this moral nation and for this country. And I want those victories to be cultural victories. And that is what is happening with Jimmy Kimmel right now. And why I know that Charlie Kirk is looking down from heaven and smiling at this moment. I know it. I know it. It's exciting. We're going to talk about this, ladies and gentlemen. I got some secrets to share with you about what's been going on behind the scenes and how exciting the future is going to be right now. Again, President Trump just wrapping up there in the United Kingdom. President Trump was riding in the royal coach. It's crazy. Did you see these photos of Donald Trump? Just very quickly on England. Klein, did we load some of these as play-besides? This is, just to let you know that there's a MAGA movement in the UK. Check this out. I mean, look at this. Well, this is this is the MAGA. I mean, if they were to replace little funny hats with MAGA hats, that would be cool. This is Donald Trump riding in the royal coach. Wild. You ever seen this? You ever seen any president treated like this? This is nuts. Look at this. And here comes Trump. Whoa. Whoa. Have you ever seen a president treated like this? This is President Trump. Nuts, man. It's so cool. Very, very alpha. Very world dominant. Very Melania. Chic. Respect for our president. Respect for our nation. Again. Respect for populism and nationalism. The same populism and nationalism that Charlie defended. Ladies and gentlemen, some of the crowds, Klein, if you would, please, gathering in London. Look at this. You ever seen rallies like this? Just beautiful. Look at those crowds. Look at those crowds. Look at this aerial shot. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, here marching for Charlie, yes, for their own nation, in fact. Re-inspired to search out their Christian roots. What an incredible question at that press conference. The Christian roots of your nation, do they still exist? Everything about Western civilization stems from the laws of the New Testament laid down by Christ. The freedoms that we experience, what are they? Were they manufactured by our founders? No. They were set up as a moral nation, a moral society by Christians who so firmly believed in their faith that they did the most dangerous thing that you could possibly do, which was circumnavigate an ocean to come to an unsettled land without a welfare state, without roads, without food, in little wooden boats that couldn't even sail back. You know, a lot of these boats, like, they're like one trip. You know, you better make it in that trip. You're not able to go home. It's a one-way ticket. And they did this why? Did they do this for economic freedom? No, they did it for religious freedom. That's how committed these Christians were. Those are some dope photos. Can you toss those up? Just one or two more of those. Here's Trump, royal family. Man, they are short. Look at that. That's the American diet versus the British diet. Too many baked beans. Look at this. Trump wooing princesses. He already has his own queen, but that's a princess right there. And then Trump at the coach. I mean, come on. Bring that energy today. That's the energy we march forward with our movement. An amazing, amazing moment. Something to celebrate worldwide. Something that I want to make a distinction for and against when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel, because we've had quite an interesting part to play in all of this. You, this audience, you assisted in getting Jimmy Kimmel the Zoom call. Hey, Jimmy, we'd like to get you on a Zoom call. Jimmy, can you please join the Zoom call? We have some bad news for you. Hey, Alex, can you grab that tweet that we put up last night? That's pretty funny. Hi, Jimmy, we got something bad we got to talk with you about. We're so sorry. Something's going to happen to your show. It's like... Maybe we should. All right, maybe we should. Let's be serious. This is a very serious topic here. Let me explain to you the difference between cancel culture and consequence culture. Let me explain to you what we did to Jimmy Kimmel. Because in honor of Charlie Kirk, we fought yesterday. In honor of Charlie, and because I've worked with Charlie for 10 years, I've been able to witness how Charlie Kirk actually moved throughout the world and why he was so effective. Why does every other think tank and every other dork in a suit and every other wannabe powerful person in DC utterly fail, and why did Charlie Kirk win? I actually literally saw it myself. And yesterday, all we did was in our own poor and humble way, try to replicate that and mirror like a scintilla, a fraction of what Charlie was able to do. And it was very exciting, ladies and gentlemen. That story, you're going to love it. First, our show today is brought to you by American Financing. Just remember, our bright American future can't be had if we are in slavery. Part of the reason for this country was because people wished to get out of tyrannical systems. One of those systems is indentured servitude, and that's really, frankly, what high interest debt is. It's created so that you can never be free of it. Ladies and gentlemen, American Financing is helping our viewers get free of debt. Some of these debt, mortgage, some of these debt payments can be up to 20%. Those rates are critical and criminal, in my opinion. And the point is that you got to get out from under that. American Financing can help. Use the equity in your home to pay off that high interest debt. No upfront fees, no obligation, just a 10-minute salary-based call with their consultants. And here's the kicker. If you start today, you can delay your mortgage payments, put more cash in your pockets right away, and seize your golden moment. Don't wait. Call American Financing at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219 today. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Let's talk about cancel culture versus consequence culture, shall we? I want to put up what would be cancel culture. So everybody's saying, wow, I thought the right would agree with free speech. Oh, hey, rightoid. I thought you were going to free speech. Do you understand that these people are more upset that Jimmy Kimmel got fired than Charlie Kirk got murdered? Kind of like letting the mask slip there. All these people that didn't say anything about Charlie Kirk in the single most violent act of a political assassination witnessed in our generation, brought about wholly and totally and predictably by the psychotic and radical, dangerous, terroristic ideologies that the left foments and funds. None of these people had anything to say about Charlie. They barely mourned him. Most of them went on TV in order to try and stomp on Charlie's legacy. We've done our level-headed best to dispatch their careers and to rip up that ideology by exposing it. But oh boy, in comes Jimmy Kimmel. And Jimmy Kimmel, of course, is the king of them all. Jimmy Kimmel, even more so than Stephen Colbert, I think, it has been a propaganda nexus, center of the universe for the left. They love the fact that late night TV, something that was wholesome and enjoyable by all, has been totally and completely poisoned and co-opted by their side. They love using the veneer of comedy, it's not funny, to propagandize, to bash their political opponents. They think that it makes them feel good. And it's just a temple of the left. It's a false idol of the left. Look at what we've conquered. This used to be Johnny Carson. This used to be Jay Leno. These were men actually of the right, frankly, that use their platforms to unite Americans and to humanize Republicans. Look at us. We won't even book a Republican. We'll dehumanize, 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 dehumanize. And that's the writing room. And that's been going on for years. Now, I wanted to take a quick moment here to talk about the distinction between consequence culture and cancel culture. Because what we did to Jimmy Kimmel is consequence culture. It is literally the free market acting upon Jimmy Kimmel. That's all. It's the way it's always worked. Jimmy Kimmel has freedom of speech to say whatever he wants. He can stand on a street corner, on top of a trash can, which will probably be what he does next. Roll up a newspaper and shout. He can get on social media and he can sound off. He can get on YouTube or Rumble or whatever and yip yap all day long. Nobody's stopping Jimmy Kimmel from talking. Not right now, not ever. In fact, Jimmy Kimmel talking more exposes the monsters that these people actually are. And so I encourage Jimmy Kimmel. I'm telling you, Jimmy, talk more. I'm not trying to silence you. I want you to talk more. Me trying to silence Jimmy Kimmel, me trying to cancel Jimmy Kimmel is this. Here's a clip of Jimmy Kimmel. This is one of dozens of times that Jimmy Kimmel did blackface. This is Jimmy Kimmel. Can you, let's listen to this for a second.
Call Malone, look. Sometime at night, call Malone, look up in the sky and say, what the hell going on up there? Do UFO live on other planet, phoning home like E.T.? Call Malone read on TV about white people getting deducted by alien, sticking all kind of hell up their butt. And that's a damn thing.
Okay, so you get the point. You can watch these old sketches. Jimmy Kimmel body shaming Oprah, also wearing full body blackface. I mean, this is full commitment, by the way. That's full body blackface. They blackfaced his legs, black legs, blackfaced his fingers. Jimmy Kimmel fully went there. Not only that, he uses the very slow and meandering affectation of somebody who would, in today's modern woke environment, be seen as mocking black people, obviously. Then he like light homophobia there potentially with some of the jokes. But that's what they are. These are just like jokes. Are you offended by this? I'm not. This would be me trying to cancel Jimmy Kimmel. Me saying that this is wrong, how dare he? And I'm so offended. I'm not. I'm not offended. I'm not offended at Dave Chappelle. You absolute hobgoblin mongoloids are the ones trying to cancel Kill Tony when he tells a hilarious joke about Puerto Rico being a floating pile of garbage. You absolute vampires. You're the ones who canceled Roseanne for a tweet. You're sitting here saying you're the defenders of comedy? Really? How'd you think about Ricky Gervais when he was roasting all of you to your faces? You all canceled those comedians. You all went after to scalp those people. You went after Dave Chappelle. Hey, Alex, can you just remind people of this? Can you get me the Dave Chappelle walkout? There was like a transgender walkout at Netflix where Netflix proved that like half their staff was transgender. And they all walked out because they were so offended that Dave Chappelle trolled a trans joke. You all went to cancel Dave Chappelle. Barack Obama got Roseanne canceled by ABC, same network. Roseanne show a lot more successful than Jimmy Kimmel show, by the way. So that's what cancel culture is. Cancel culture is your joke offended me. I'm so hurt by your joke, or the old thing that you posted 20 years ago, or you doing blackface. That's not what I'm doing. I defend Dave Chappelle. I stand on business. Dave Chappelle has a right to make hysterical and very offensive jokes. He does so often about Republicans, Christians, Trump supporters, whatever. I have never once and never will call for Dave Chappelle to do anything but like be freaking hilarious. The left does this. I was in the audience. ALX and I both, ALX, executive producer, and I were sitting there probably like 10 feet from Kill Tony when Kill Tony was killing it during that Trump rally. And we were howling hysterically. And the entire apparatus of the Democrat Party positioned, including Barack Obama, to cancel Kill Tony, who you could argue right now is probably the single most influential comedian in the world because he told a funny joke. That's not even in the least bit offensive. They came for Kill Tony. They tried to use it to weaponize against Donald Trump, the entire election, racist, Nazi, MAGA rally, all these things that they said. No, it is the left. It is the left that psychotically tries to cancel comedians and cancel people because of things that they are offended about. I am not doing that to Jimmy Kimmel. We are not doing that to Jimmy Kimmel. This is absolutely critical to understand. And please forgive me while I take just a moment to break this down, because you must know this. The true story about how Jimmy Kimmel, I posted this on X this morning, but we're going to go through this. This is the real story about why and how Jimmy Kimmel has been indefinitely suspended from ABC. It had nothing to do with a naughty joke that offended us. It had everything to do with something called an FCC broadcast license. We'll get there in just a second. First, I want you to see, they refused to play the clip of what Jimmy Kimmel said. So I want you to see it in all of its banality. This is what Jimmy Kimmel actually said about Charlie Kirk. Now, they refused to play this. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why they refused to play what Jimmy Kimmel actually did. Doesn't his words matter in this circumstance? This is what I saw. Go ahead and listen.
We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
And then he plays a clip of Donald Trump and he insults Trump. He says Trump doesn't care that his friend died. That's what he says. The joke on Trump, really bad taste in my opinion. Whatever. Jimmy Kimmel does that every single show. It's that Jimmy Kimmel victim blamed. That's That's it right there. Jimmy Kimmel committed 2 mortal sins. Charlie Kirk's pastor is going to be on the program, actually, in just a moment, and I can't wait to talk to him actually about mortal sins. Rob McCoy is his name. He's a very good and decent, honorable man. Jimmy Kimmel committed 2 sins there in that little snipe that he made at the MAGA movement. Jimmy Kimmel, in multiple times in his comedy routine, blamed MAGA for Charlie Kirk's killing. He said that we're desperately trying to frame the shooter as something other than one of us. How else are you supposed to take that? Jimmy Kimmel, by saying that, is elucidating and leading his audience to not only believe that the shooter was MAGA, which is a demonstrable lie, provable by facts and all of the authorities and the FBI and all federal law enforcement and all local law enforcement and the prosecutor and all of the available evidence. So not only is that a malicious lie, okay, check. But what it is also doing is victim blaming. It's saying that Charlie deserved what he got because Charlie was the figurehead of MAGA. Charlie was a generational voice of MAGA. And then Charlie was killed by his own side. That's what it's saying. Now, extrapolate that forward. What Jimmy Kimmel is now projecting to his radical, frothing at the mouth, overly medicated, mentally ill, left-wing, violent, terroristic audience who sit there like seals, the ones that are left. What is Jimmy Kimmel's most recent ratings? What has he got, like 2 million viewers? So they're like seals, like lobotomized seals, and clap for Jimmy Kimmel. What he's projecting to them is that if you go kill a Trump supporter, then I will protect you. That's what he's saying. Go out and do exactly to any Trump supporter what happened to Charlie. And I, Jimmy Kimmel, with the full power of ABC behind me, will defend you, will whitewash your crime, will make fun of it, will use it as an opportunity to attack Trump and to attack MAGA. What Jimmy Kimmel is doing is he is signaling to the left that you can get away with this. Understand the severity of that and how important that is to have a consequence. It is a matter of life and death. For us, for you, for all of us. It needs to be taken deadly seriously. So let's go through this. How did we attack? Well, it's not enough to just bang pots and pans online. Sorry, the right often does this. Says, oh, we're just going to like send a mean tweet. No, sorry, that doesn't do it. You have to learn to fight like the left does. What is the most important thing when it comes to the way the left fights? Mobilization of soft power. And that's what we did yesterday. You have to understand that ABC News is not Fox News. It's not CNN. It's not MSNBC. These tactics may not work with those networks. And there's a reason why. ABC News has a very special broadcast license with the FCC. That special broadcast license comes with obscene taxpayer-funded privileges in order to broadcast into the homes of every American and use the government infrastructure to do so that they don't pay for. And then nobody pays for ABC. Do you pay for ABC News? Of course not. You turn on your TV, it's there. Do you realize what awesome power that would be? What if our show? What if they gave that to the Benny Show? What if the Benny Show cut a special deal with the government that said the federal government will pump my show into everyone's phone and into everyone's TV and use the government infrastructure paid for by all of us in order to broadcast the Benny Show straight into the country's televisions and screens? Whoa. All 330 million of them, plus devices, plus all the TVs. So like 1 billion devices. By the end of it, I get to have my show on 1 billion devices. that would greatly benefit my show. I would probably take that deal. I would say, wow, what a grandiose and lavish deal. What are the strings attached to that? Well, there are some, actually. Of course, there always are. The strings are that you have to broadcast in the public interest and in a fair and equal way that is written by statute in law. That is not statute that binds Fox News. That's not statute that binds MSNBC. That's not a statute that binds our YouTube channel. That's not statute that binds virtually any podcast on earth. This, ladies and gentlemen, is critical. So that's the first thing you have to understand. ABC News is not just your normal broadcaster. They live off of the gluttony of a deal that was made a generation ago with the federal government. That's where all their money comes from. Would you pay for ABC News? Of course you wouldn't. So who regulates those important contracts? The FCC. The FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, happens to be a friend of the show, and we were able to get a hold of him immediately and invite him on. Brendan Carr came on and said, Disney is going to have to defend Jimmy Kimmel's comments. Why would Disney need to defend them? Because they're so offensive? No. Because they have a special broadcast license with the federal government that stipulates that their broadcast must be fair and equal and in the public interest. Is it in the public interest to lie about Charlie Kirk's death? No, you don't have a right to do that. And you certainly don't have a right to demand the taxpayers pay you to do it. Do you see how indefensible it is? So let's continue to stack, shall we? Our little Jenga tower here. So we make them defend the indefensible, then we force them to eat it. And that's what we did. Our team contacted rapidly throughout the day ABC, Disney, and all of the local affiliates. Now, this is what's very important about how this works. Local ABC News affiliates, they work with ABC. ABC is simply the production house. They make the content. And the affiliates then broadcast the content, but those affiliates are privately owned. And there are hundreds of them all around the country. These are your local ABC News stations. Those affiliates have private ownership. That private ownership can decide or not decide to air whatever sewage ABC News is shoving down the pipes. Those private businesses can say, we believe that our viewers in this red Trump country, look at this map, 90% of the counties in America voted for Trump. We live in a red kingdom that loved Charlie Kirk, that are sickened in their hearts and souls about what Jimmy Kimmel said, are disgusted by it. They know that it is a lie. And they are sick of being spat on and insulted and denigrated by Jimmy Kimmel. The local stations, the leadership of Nexstar and Sinclair, these are two broadcast affiliates of ABC that broadcast into 37 million households, said, we're not going to run Jimmy Kimmel anymore. What's Jimmy Kimmel's viewership? Get that? Producers. What's Jimmy Kimmel's What's Jimmy Kimmel's viewership? What's he got? 1.7 million. Okay, so he's got 1.7 million per night. Well, if you rip him out of 37 million houses, and he barely cracks 2 million viewers a night, what do you think that's going to do to his viewership? Do you see how his show collapses instantly? And then what does that do? All of the advertisers say, we're not going to advertise on that. He's got no viewers. So you suddenly create a cycle that is a crisis for Disney. And then they have no choice. Add an FCC investigation onto the top of that, on all the lost revenue and all the outrage from their customers, and you have the perfect storm to rip Jimmy Kimmel off the air. And that is precisely what we did. It is a generational culture war victory. Charlie always knew how to fight and win. We are the majority in this country. When Republicans organize and unite for a common cause, we are unstoppable. We should unite and win in this moment and do it for Charlie. This is a culture war victory that Charlie would have loved to see. And joining us live right now is Charlie's pastor, his personal friend, and his spiritual guide, who can lend perhaps some clarity to this moment and also some insight into what happens next. Join us in welcoming Pastor Rob McCoy to the show. Pastor, welcome to the program. It's an honor to have you. Just want to sort of open up the floor and give you an opportunity to memorialize and eulogize Charlie as you knew him perhaps better than almost anyone on earth.
Well, with the exception, obviously, of Erica and a few others. But I thank you for that great honor, Benny. I remember the first time I had a chance to connect with you, and I don't know if you recall, but it was just as COVID hit, and we were doing that event in North Carolina, and it was a ghost town. And you were sitting with Charlie in the coffee shop, and we had a chance to get to know each other. And I've been a fan ever since. And you are a pit bull for Jesus. I love how you take on the culture and the way God's gifted you to understand how it operates is just so profound. And you're one of the folks carrying the corner of the stretcher in relation to this. You're carrying the fight, and I can't thank you enough, and especially the way in which we both love and adore Charlie, and we hurt for Erica, and you have honored him so well. And I love this piece that you're doing on Jimmy Kimmel. You know, it's ironic, Benny, that the left decries that Jimmy Kimmel was fired for what he said, when what he said was that Charlie Kirk deserved to die for what he said. It's stunning to me that they just can't process that. You know, it wasn't a violation of free speech. It was the application of free enterprise. The woke culture, when they cancel someone, their ratings drop. And the only way it can be sustained is by being propped up by other successful shows. Once you get someone in who's going to speak to the general population and start to understand the thread of society, they're going to profit, but they're not interested in profit. They don't like free market. That's not what they're about. It's just they don't understand it, and it bugs me quite furiously. You were referring to the commandments, and we can even go back to the Old Testament as well as the New. When this is something, and I spoke on it on Sunday about Charlie. I look at Charlie and his life as a modern day Moses. And I know this is going to sound funky, but bear with me. Is it okay if I go this way?
Please.
You know, 3 to 5 million people were enslaved in Egypt. 3 to 5 million Jews were enslaved in Egypt. They were under the tyranny of Pharaoh. And they were told they were God's people through Abraham. They'd been enslaved. This is 400 years later. They had forgotten who they were. And they cry out to God for a deliverer. God sends an 80-year-old man by the name of Moses. And he confronts Pharaoh, and he says, let my people go. And this is the most powerful man on the face of the earth. You want to talk about the global elite. Pharaoh, like all tyrants, looks at Moses and says, who's God that I should obey him? I have all my small gods, gods with small g's. And so Pharaoh doubles the brick output and reduces the materials on these Hebrew slaves. And they begin to complain, and they don't complain to Pharaoh. They want to complain to Moses. People want freedom, but they just don't want to work for it. And Charlie used to say, sometimes I wonder if people really want freedom or they just want to be taken care of. And so Moses, because one man in God constitutes a majority, and that's what Charlie was. He understood that God was the majority, and he operated in that context. And he continued forward, even though it wasn't popular. You'd be with him at some of these campus events. It'd be Charlie, a handful of us, and a sea of detractors. And he would just continue by the spoken word. He wasn't a violent man. He built Turning Point on nothing more than the spoken word, logic and reason, logos. And every day he was threatened by those who couldn't contend logically with the spoken word. And he would step forward without any fear, because as the Apostle Paul said, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, it's Christ who lives in me. I is ego, self-preservation. Charlie had given his life to the Lord, and it was in his hands, and he was going to step forward courageously without fear. Because in the absence of courage, truth is an orphan. And Charlie was fearless, just like you are. And he knew every day with those threats that he was in danger, but his life belonged to God. Like he would say, I'm immortal until God's done with me. And as he would step forward and contend, he would win hearts. And now it's not Charlie and a sea of detractors. It was Charlie, a handful of us, and a sea of red hats, and people professing having come to Christ because of him sharing his faith. I see this because these young people, to me, were the equivalent of the 3 to 5 million Jews enslaved. They were enslaved in secular humanism, in the indoctrination of universities and campuses across America, and a public school system that had walked away from classical education to indoctrination. And as Charlie continued to tell them and remind them who they were, just like Moses did. You know, Moses confronts Pharaoh, does the 10 plagues. Each one dealt with one of the small gods of Egypt. And it wasn't until the Passover where the angel of death would pass over. And that's a picture of Christ in the Old Testament, the Pesach. And Pharaoh relents and lets the slaves go. They leave with the wealth of the Egyptians. And as they're leaving, Pharaoh realizes he's losing his slave economy. So he doubles down, sends his entire army after them. Now, the Hebrews have mountain ranges on either side, the Red Sea in front of them, and the Egyptian army descending down upon them. And they begin again to lament to Moses. And Moses does what Charlie would always do. He went to God. God parts the Red Sea. They pass through in clarity, and the Egyptian army passes through in abstract darkness, stumbling their way through until they get to the middle, and then God floods it and kills them. And now these Hebrews are free in the wilderness. There's no food, no water, out in the middle of the desert, and God provides manna every morning, water, quail blown off course, and he starts to re-educate them. He's reminding them, you know, you lived under a society that worshipped pagans, worshipped the creation instead of the creator. He says, your God is the one that created the universe, who holds the heavens in the span of his hand. Your God created you and everything. He created marriage. He created, family. And Moses then goes up on Mount Sinai and gets the downloaded moral app, the Decalogue. And he comes down and he places it in the center of the community. And he begins to instruct them on these 10 commandments. There's one God. There's no idols. You don't take the name of the Lord your God in vain. You honor the Sabbath day, which Charlie did. You honor your mother and father. It'll go well with you. You live long on the earth in which I've given you. And the one that you inferred and reflected on is the 6th commandment, thou shalt not murder. Jesus said, you've heard that said, thou shalt not murder, but I say to you, he who says to his brother, raka, or fool, is in danger of the fires of hell. Words can murder. And that's what Jimmy Kimmel was doing. That's what the left is doing. You know, it was King David who had committed 2 sins for which there was no sacrifice in all of Israel, murder and adultery. He's the one who put the hit on Uriah the Hittite. He said, put him to the front lines and then give the signal to back all the soldiers off, and left him out there hanging in the wind to be killed. Now David didn't kill him, but he gave the order to kill him. And that's what they're doing from their platforms. And that's what they did. You know, that bullet was loaded by the words of the left. The trigger was pulled by that individual, but they were all complicit in this. And then, of course, the 7th commandment is, 7 is there's 2 in a marriage, not 5. Don't commit adultery. Charlie put forward purity and commitment to one mate for the course of your life, and the beauty of marriage. He wanted that for young people. And the idea of the 8th commandment, don't steal. The 9th is don't bear false witness. Tell the truth. He always wanted to tell the truth. He sought the truth. And when he would be wrong, he would admit it. And then the 10th was don't covet. 3 things bring someone like Charlie down: gold, glory, or girls. It was never about money to Charlie. It was never about glory to Charlie. And with Erica, he was a one-woman man. And here he leads them out of the wilderness. He re-educates 3 to 5 million people for 40 years. They wake up and they see Moses and he's instructing them. They go to bed with the lessons that Moses has taught them. They're applying this law. These 3 to 5 million people live together. This is the greatest miracle. They lived together for 40 years without a police force or a standing army, because they had the moral law. And it was Moses who gave them the Pentateuch with the civil law in Deuteronomy, which was the #1 book of the Bible that our founders quoted. The civil law was common law that we would ultimately get Western civilization from. He taught them marital law, business law, and all of this civil law directed them as a nation. And this was a constitutional republic in the sense that they had the moral law, the Decalogue, which dictated their civil law. And they had a representative form of government, because Jethro would say to his son-in-law, appoint godly men who are not covetous, who love the law over thousands, hundreds, fifties, tens, federal, state, county, local. And as the psalmist would say, the Lord is our king, our judge, and our lawgiver, executive, legislative, judicial branch. That's why the founders searched through the Pentateuch when they were putting together our republic. And Moses did all that. And they trusted him. And when the cloud would move at night with Moses, they would move with him. And when the pillar of fire would move by night, when Moses was walking, they would walk with him. I mean, this man was bigger than life. And all of a sudden we get to Joshua chapter 1. And Moses has been dead for 30 days. Every day they wake up, their leader's gone. The man that has re-identified an entire generation, as Charlie did with these young people. And they're wondering, what do we do now? And 30 days have passed as they wake up lamenting and weeping. And then God says to Joshua, the servant of Moses, he says, Moses, my servant, is dead. You're not going to lead from the grave, Joshua. Now I want you to get up and I want you to cross the Jordan. Who's Joshua? He was the son of Nun. He was the servant of Moses. When Moses would go up on Mount Sinai and meet with the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights in his presence and bring Joshua with him, Joshua didn't go into the presence of the Lord. He just sat out on the mountain. And while Aaron and Hur were down there fashioning a golden calf, Joshua was serving Moses. And what's he doing? Sitting on a mountain looking for crickets to eat. He would be down in the valley fighting Amalek. And Moses at 120, the scripture says that even as gifted as Joshua was in the war, he would only advance if Moses was holding up the staff. And when Moses would drop the staff because he was elderly, Joshua would start to lose the fight. So Aaron and Hur come and hold up his arms, which, and Joshua's in the middle of this fight, waiting for orders from Moses. He's serving him, and it doesn't matter how hard he's fighting or how gifted he is. If Moses isn't holding up the staff, he's losing, and he's trusting Moses through the process. And it's Moses who turns to Joshua, watching how much of a servant he is. And he says to him, I want you to appoint the guys over the 12 tribes, find servants. And he said the same with the 70 elders, because he knew a servant knew how to find servants. And that's what Charlie did with the entire staff at Turning Point USA. He entrusted them with authority at such a young age. I'm looking at my son, Mikey, at 24. I mean, when Charlie said, Rob, I wanted to be my body man, and I said, Charlie, he can't make his own bed. I don't see it. Charlie saw in my son what I didn't even see. And this kid at 24, he's in the court of kings and he's handling it because he learned how to serve Charlie, and observing and serving Charlie, Charlie saw in him the ability to find other servants just like him. And he would entrust him to appoint staff members. And you have at Turning Point USA some of the most gifted young people in the world. They're all Joshuas. And I'll conclude with this, Benny. Moses got him out of slavery. He didn't get him into the promised land. It was Joshua who did it. And the Lord said, I want you to take the children into the promised land. But here's how you're going to do it, Joshua. You're going to get the Ark of the Covenant, and you're going to have the priests carried over, and the people will follow. Now, the promised land is not heaven, because there's enemies in the promised land in the Bible, and there won't be any enemies in heaven. The promised land is the place where they could go. Are you ready for this? They could go to own land. They could build houses. They could raise families. And most importantly, they could freely worship their God. And he led them in with the priests. And Charlie knew that the nation needed the churches. And the churches had abdicated their responsibility in the public square. They had walked away from contending in politics. They would say politics is dirty. And I'd say to the pastors, so's the church. What's your point? Politics is the highest form of community. It combines morality with sociability. If God didn't want us in politics, Pastor, he wouldn't have invented marriage. We need rules on how to get along. And they just wanted to truncate Christianity and truncate the gospel and make it myopic. And they were Gnostics by saying, we don't soil ourselves with politics as though somehow they're morally superior. And Charlie saw politics as an on-ramp for young people to Christianity. He would say, if we can get these young people rowing in the streams of liberty, they'll find its source, which is Jesus. It's 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. And Charlie knew that. And he wanted them to see that these principles would allow them to occupy the promised land where you can own a home, you can raise a family, you can have a meaningful job. But most importantly, all of this stems from the freedom to worship. And that's what's going to happen in this next generation, this Joshua generation, with all these young people Charlie's inspired. I have never been more encouraged in all my life. Charlie is a martyr, it's true. When a tyrant dies, his power ceases, but when a martyr dies, his power increases. These young people are so inspired by his life. We're all heartbroken, but we're all inspired. We're sad, but we're not in despair. I'm looking at Erica. She is a lioness. She's a modern day Elizabeth Elliot, who, if your viewers and listeners don't know, Jim Elliot was a martyr, and Elizabeth Elliot went on to be such a powerful force, the largest mission movement launch in modern history in the 20th century, I'd say. And she lived to stand for her husband's principles and to inspire an entire generation of young people. That's where we are today. And come Sunday, when this broadcasts out across the world, it will be the largest harvest of souls in modern American history, probably in the world. And Benny, the last part, if you don't mind, and it's going to be hard to get through. I was in Korea with Charlie just a week and a half ago, and we were in the green room, and he doesn't leave America. He went to England because they kept saying he was afraid to debate. He just didn't want to go to London, Stan. He didn't want to go to England. And then he went over there, and we watched him just mop the floor with those petulant kids. And now we're in Korea, and he went to Korea because that nation, the largest Christian nation in Asia, is under attack by a socialist president who's now imprisoning pastors and raiding churches. And he went to stand with Mina Kim, who started the equivalent of Turning Point USA. It's called Build Up Korea. And this young woman standing for principles of freedom and the love of Christ, inspiring thousands of Korean youth who are marching through the streets now saying, I am Charlie Kirk. And at that gathering, I had a chance to sit with Charlie. And it's true, I used to travel with him and have great times. And after the election, his stock went through the stratosphere. And I haven't had a ton of time with him. We talk, but this was precious. And he goes, I said, Charlie, we haven't had a lot of time together, and you keep calling me your pastor. And I said, Charlie, you got guys like Jack Hibbs and Alan Jackson and so many others across the country that I wish they'd make two of them and none of me. And Charlie, they minister to you. It would do you better to call one of them your pastor. And I said, Charlie, the only gift I have is to preach a church down to a manageable size. It's true we have history. It's true that mine was the first church you preached at because you didn't think churches wanted you. And now we realize you are the most misunderstood missionary in the world. And it opened up the door for him to launch. But I just said, Charlie, you don't have to call me your pastor anymore. And he said this. He said, you're not only my pastor, you're America's pastor. And I said, Charlie, if we were at a campus right now, prove me wrong, I would smoke you on this one. I said, Charlie, you're in the book of Who's Who, I'm in the book of Who's He. And then all of a sudden, I get a call that I'm supposed to give the gospel message at his memorial service. And doggone it, I'm not America's pastor today, and I won't be after Sunday, but for 11 minutes, when I tell the world about Charlie's Savior, and I honor him, his desire is not that they leave that event with Charlie's name on their lips, but with his Savior's name on their lips. Charlie, I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry, Benny. I miss him. I love him. But if the churches and the pastors in America don't realize and start waking up to who he is and what he's done, they need to get out of ministry.
There's no real follow-up question to that, Pastor. There's no way to, it would be just a poor attempt to try and synthesize that beautiful message and story and sermon that you just gave here. And we will all be praying for you when you take the stage with what must be at least tens, maybe hundreds of millions watching, and give an opportunity that has been allowed for by not Charlie, but the act of God in Charlie's life. He was always prophetic and, of course, did die a martyr. No 13-year-old boy wanders, no 13 or 14-year-old boy wanders the halls of the RNC convention in 2012 when Mitt Romney was the candidate looking for donors for a Turning Point USA. This is what Charlie was doing. 14-year-old boys are getting Legos stuck up their nose at that point. Like but Charlie had this, you know, you just can't fight God. You're right. Like, you can't fight the wind. You can't fight God. You can't fight God's calling on Charlie's life. And those of us who were able to witness it up close, like, we witnessed a miracle. I don't think, Pastor, I'll ever be able to say that I saw another miracle. The birth of my children, I suppose. But, like, you know, and that's in its own way to me a miracle. But I witnessed a miracle at scale with Charlie's life. I'll be able to say that on my deathbed. Amen. I'll be able to, like, sit and, like, smile, little crack a smile that I got to witness like an actual miracle up to martyrdom, and then to see then that martyrdom, much like with Stephen, go worldwide, right, and advance the kingdom the way that God always advances his kingdom, which is through martyrdom and through the suffering of his saints. And it's just a profound thing, and I'm dwelling upon that constantly. And, well, I'm seeking spiritual advice right now, and I'd like to ask you to do something for our audience, and perhaps in the lead up to the service on Sunday. I know there's a lot of people that are hurting, and a lot of people that would love a prayer from you. Perhaps we could just pray here and carry us, spiritually bind us, and carry us with protection into this very important weekend.
Benny, as we begin to pray, I want to say this, that there's a lot of chatter going on. When Abraham Lincoln died, everybody wanted to claim his life for their own because he was bigger than life. And that's what's happening now. Everyone's trying to position themselves to get something from Charlie's life.
Yeah, it's grotesque. I hate it. I don't really want to talk about it, but I hate it. Yeah.
I don't. And all I want to say about it is this. I'm getting calls from everyone saying, is it true? Is it true that Charlie said this? And I said, stop. Yes. This is not the season. Everybody right now is talking to man about man. It's time to talk to God about man. It's time to pray for the family. It's time to pray for Erica and the kids and his mom and his dad and his sister and all the folks at Turning Point and everybody who loved Charlie. It's time to pray for a harvest of souls. It's time to endeavor to keep the unity of the spirit and the bond of peace. You can do all your stuff later. Let's bury our brother. And everybody just calm down. Everybody calm down. Read Psalm 131. I do not concern myself with matters too profound for me, but I've calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this day forth and forevermore. And the idea is just calm down, seek the Lord, pray, talk to God about man, and come to the Lord, and he's there. He's an ever-present help in times of need. And so let's go to the Lord now. Lord, I thank you for Benny. I thank you for his precious family. And Lord, I thank you for the work he's doing and how he is honoring Charlie, but more importantly, contending in culture for truth. And Lord, Charlie wasn't guilty of hate speech. They just hated his speech. A lie can never survive in the presence of truth, but the truth is never afraid of a lie. And Charlie was never afraid, Lord, because you were with him. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He would wake up every day, Lord, in your presence, spending time with you as you had instructed him when you, Lord Jesus, long before the sun would arise, you'd go to a solitary place and there commune with the Father. Charlie made that the strongest point of his day. He knew that time with you was the most precious thing he could do, and he would even take one day of the week to shut everything down and make sure his family recognized that you were the start of every week and you were the head of that home. And so, Lord, now that Gigi and Mac are being raised without their daddy, Lord, you are a father to the fatherless. And God, I pray that you would comfort Erica. I pray that you would cause those children to grow and give them a double portion of what their daddy had. that you would cause those two to have a supernatural love for your word and a heart to proclaim it, that you would protect their purity and their innocence, and that you'd make them mighty in their generation to declare your truths. I pray that you'd give Erica wisdom beyond her years to raise them in the love and the admonition of the Lord, and bring alongside folks who would help in that capacity. And Lord, we pray for his mom and his dad and his sister, comfort upon them. No parent should ever outlive their child. And Lord, I pray that you would minister to all the staff who is just crushed and hurting, that you would comfort them and bless them and allow them to not look down, but to look up. In the year that King Uzziah died, which was just shocking to all the nation, their leader was dead, the one that had brought freedom, even when Moses is dead. But Lord, when Uzziah died, Isaiah says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple with glory. Lord, allow us all to look up, to realize you were the strength to Charlie, and you're the strength to us. May all of this, and this trial and this difficulty in this fallen world, cause us to press into you and there find help in our time of need. You're the holy comforter. You're the one who comes alongside. And Lord, I pray you'd bring peace, a peace that would surpass all understanding, guarding their heart and their mind in Christ Jesus. And we pray come Sunday, Lord, there would be a great harvest of souls. That, Lord, as Charlie said, make heaven crowded. Lord, please, I pray that you would be glorified and blessed. And let even the political speakers speak of how their life was spiritually changed by Charlie. Control their voices. Make it a day to glorify your name. And Lord, again, thank you for Benny, and thank you for the blessing of this platform, honoring our friend, Charlie Kirk. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. What a wonderful thing to be able to do that live on the show. It's real simple Christianity, ain't it? It's just being a simple Christian, just believing in the Bible, believing in our Lord Jesus Christ, and then reading that Bible and carrying forward and what it says. It's like it's a simple life and a beautiful life, and it's nice, it's comforting. Thank you. That was a great comfort to us, and I know a great comfort to our audience.
You bet, Benny.
Pastor.
I want to tell you, you're one of the funniest men I've ever met. Sometimes I laugh so hard the tears run down my legs. Keep it up, Benny. You are precious. You are precious, brother.
If you wouldn't mind, in closing here, I really wanted to get to a prayer, and I'm so glad that we did. And if you do have a spare moment, I think that this is important and on the minds of the audience. A message to Jimmy Kimmel, a message to those who are constantly that continue to attack Charlie. Like, what is it that we're facing there? Yeah. I read Romans 13 this week, and my pastor brought that up to me and talked through that the leader is set up by God. The leaders of the nations are set up by God, and they don't wield the sword in vain. They wield the sword to be a terror unto evil men. So be a good man so that you're not terrorized, right?
Yeah.
And I want to just pivot. I just want to throw to you in conclusion here, because I know there's a lot of what should we be doing? Should we all become pacifists? I think that would actually be wrong. I think the Bibles wouldn't, should we all bend, bow our head and wait for the next terrorist to take, who's next? Or do we continue the fight? Whether it's Jimmy Kimmel, right? With that despicable lie, or whether it's dismantling the left-wing terrorist network that stole Charlie from us. Yeah. The floor is yours to just conclude here, Pastor.
Thanks, Benny. Romans 13 says that they're ministers of justice to execute wrath on those who would do evil. But it also says God appoints all positions of authority, and we're to submit to that authority. But what they leave out when they say that is those ministers are there for our good. And when they cease to do good, they cease to be the authority. And yes, we want to apply that authority, but in order that government does that authority in a proper way, to apply the civil law must first come from the filter of the moral law. I want all your audience to understand that moral law, because when that was placed in the center of the community with the Israelites, and our founders, even Adam said, only a moral and religious people can govern a republic. If you don't understand that moral law, when the moral law is applied to civil law, it becomes the wise restraints that make men free, because you're applying restraints towards evil in order to pursue excellence. But when you remove the moral law, the civil law just becomes a weapon to enslave. Like during COVID, you're not essential. They arbitrarily, We must return to the moral law. I'm not asking you to be a Christian. I'm just asking you to recognize the first 5 commandments is your relationship with God. You're accountable to him. Jimmy, you're accountable to him. The second 5 commandments is you're accountable to each other. You don't steal, you don't murder, you don't lie. And if we as a nation apply this moral law, then we're going to live together without a police force or a standing army like the Israelites did. We must return to that moral law. And Galatians 3 says that law is a school teacher to point us to Christ until faith comes. That's rowing in the streams of liberty. And Jimmy, Charlie wasn't your enemy. He looked at you as his opportunity. If you were at one of his tabling events on a campus, he'd bring you to the front of the line. He believed in dialogue and the freedom of speech and logos, and he wanted to dialogue with you. He was never your enemy. Your ideology was his enemy. But he saw you created in the image of God, that you were fearfully and wonderfully made. We're created equal, not in capacity, but in dignity. And he would honor you and he would dignify you. And I think all of us would do well to do that for each other in this season. Just put down the rhetoric. Understand the moral law of God. Even though you don't want to believe in God, you still have to come to a place where there's a standard. We've got to have a standard. It's not arbitrary that whoever's in power gets to decide the rules. And this is the beauty of a republic. It's representative. 6,000 years of recorded history. This nation has been around for 250 years next year. We represent 4% of the world's population. Yet we have more patents, more Nobel Peace Prize winners, more symphonies, more accumulation of wealth. You ride in an elevator, it was invented by an American. You fly in an airplane, it was invented by an American. You enjoy the internet, it was invented by an American, not Al Gore. And all of this, not because we had more natural resources. Canada surpasses us, and so does South America. It's because we have religious freedom. That this government doesn't get in the way of its people worshiping God. And as Alexis de Tocqueville said, America's good because America's great. When America ceases to be good, it'll cease to be great. Everybody press in. Let's get back to civility. Let's honor one another. We've been creating the image of God. You take God out of the equation, and now we're a cosmic accident, and there's no meaning. And we're devouring one another. We're out of that slavery now. All of this generation has been out of that and they've all been imprinted for their very first time voting as chicks with a mother hen. They're going to be doing this for the rest of their life. This is the new red wave. And it would do well for Jimmy and everyone else to say, okay, let's learn from each other. Jimmy, come on. Let's learn together. You're not my enemy. You're my opportunity. The ideology that destroys, which is what the left does, and that's what evil does. Evil kills in the womb, kills outside the womb, mars and mutilates. But God has come that you might have life and life more abundant. And you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's what I have for you.
Pastor Rob McCoy can be found here on Instagram. This is the handle that you can go to. He has 50,000 subscribers here on Instagram. He shares messages and videos. And also, if you are local in, I'm not even sure, Pastor, where exactly would they be able to attend your church?
Okay, so last week I barely had 20,000 followers, and I've got 650 posts. I'm only on social media because Charlie told me to. I'm a pastor of a church in Thousand Oaks, California. I was the former mayor of the city of Thousand Oaks. And now with guys like you and Sean Hannity and Charlie, my Instagram's going through the roof. And I'm going to start posting on there to start ministering to people. If you want to tune in, I'm just going to talk about the Lord like I'm doing now. Yeah. And in this season, it'll be a place to come. I want nothing from you. I get paid by nobody. I'm paid by the church. I'm the pastor emeritus. I'm not a rich man, nor do I want to be. Godliness with contentment is great gain. I'm here to minister to you. You're going to hear stories about me being paid by 1 million people. It's not true. And if you want to come and meet me, Godspeed, Calvary Chapel, Thousand Oaks. God bless you guys.
God bless you, Pastor. We'll see you this weekend.
All right, brother. Bye now. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Benny. Bye.
Godspeed. You know, sometimes you just kind of sit back and you just have to morally prepare yourself when you have powerful guests and guests that really have something truly to say. You know, we interview no shortage of world leaders, senators, congressmen around here. And that's great. And we love them all. Don't you get me wrong. But there are some people that come on with profundity, have a profound purpose, have something that they carry with them that, you know, in my role here, you just sit back and you just say, go, preach. Sometimes it's a literal pastor. And so it's easy to just say preach. And sometimes there are very different ways that it shows itself, but it happens, and it's always a blessing when it does. We look forward to this weekend and continuing this work. We'll be carrying with us this weekend the only Christian conservative wireless provider in the world, which is Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile boldly stands in the gap for Christians and conservatives around this country, fighting for free speech when all of us were getting canceled, when every single one of us was losing the opportunity to be platformed by like basic platforming, like a bank. I can't tolerate what the left is doing right now is so duplicitous, and it is so the banality of evil. They were debanking people. They were debanking me. They were debanking members of the right just because we politically disagreed with them. They're going to squeal here about a bunch of privately owned networks saying that Jimmy Kimmel, what he said is despicable and indefensible, so we're not going to air his program anymore. That's what happened. That's all that happened. All right? The FCC saying that because of their broadcast license that a Disney and ABC are in jeopardy of an investigation. That's all that happened. You know? Find out, right? These people are going to squeal and shriek like demons about cancel culture when Patriot Mobile, who's been an ally of us and a sponsor of our show for years now, was there for us when I thought any given day my, phone contract or bank that has my mortgage, like that they drop, like would they even be able to get electricity and hot water to my home? Am I allowed to drive on roads, in the year 2021? You remember how bad it got? Yeah. Raiding Trump's house with guns drawn and a kill order. That's how bad it got. Anyway, there are some companies that actually stuck through and stayed strong during those days. Patriot Mobile's one of them. You should change. You should change your mobile provider. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code Benny for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I did want to denote something that I think is really fun and very exciting, which is that Donald Trump has designated Antifa a terrorist organization. What does that mean? I'm not sure how they're going to enforce that. I look forward to having law enforcement officials. I'm not trying to make fun of it. I want this, obviously. I'm looking forward to having law enforcement officials from the DOJ and the FBI coming on our program in order to talk through this. This is critically important. President Trump, on Wednesday evening, right after Jimmy Kimmel got ripped off the air, announced that he will be designating Antifa, a left-wing activist group, a major terrorist organization. Trump described the group as a sick and dangerous radical left disaster in a Truth Social announcement. The president added that he will be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. The announcement comes after President Trump said he would 100% consider the designation. Interesting little backstory here that we know about. That's kind of a fascinating bit. Antifa is obviously a militant arm of the Democrat Party. They're the foot soldiers that go and commit terrorism throughout our land. They should absolutely and totally have this designation without question. Speaking to reporters from the Oval Office Monday, Trump accused Antifa participants of being professional agitators. Let's grab that clip, please, if we would. I'd like to just play it. In response to the administration's recent crackdown on illegal immigration. Antifa is terrible, says Donald Trump. These aren't protests. They're crimes. It's crimes that they are doing. They're throwing bricks at ICE and Border Patrol agents. They're professional agitators. They should be in jail. Antifa is, of course, a communist movement that is well-funded. And I think that really gets the heart of all of this. How do you get Jimmy Kimmel off air? Well, you go to where the dollars are. When the dollars stop flowing, then the organization ceases to exist. It's the blood in the bloodstream, right? And so this is exactly what must be done with Antifa. President Trump's True Social post here. I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization, I will be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Oh yeah, baby. There it is. Pretty amazing. And kind of an exciting moment here. Just an exciting moment to be alive. Here's Donald Trump saying, you effed around and you found out. Here we go.
With all the that's going on with Charlie Kirk's assassination and the left-wing, a lot of left-wing violence going on, do you have plans, and actually this is a great opportunity with all these, do you plan on designating Antifa finally a domestic terror organization?
Well, it's something I would do, yeah. If I have support from the people back here, I think we'd start with Pam, I think. But I would, if you give me, I would do that 100%. And others also, by the way. But Antifa is terrible.
Are there other groups that you can think of?
There are other groups, yeah. There are other groups. We have some pretty radical groups, and they got away with murder. And also, I've been speaking to the Attorney General about bringing RICO against some of the people that you've been reading about that have been putting up millions and millions of dollars for agitation. These aren't protests. These are crimes, what they're doing, where they're throwing bricks at cars of ICE and Border Patrol. And they come in with a beautiful new car. They're so proud. It's Border Patrol, ICE, it's got whatever it is. And they're throwing rocks at it. And after 50 yards, it looks like an old beat-up vehicle. It was just brand new. It was just bought for the purposes. And they don't have to take that anymore. I let it be known. We'll take responsibility. They don't have to take it anymore. And they don't want to take it. They were told by a past administration, it became almost a culture, if somebody throws a rock at you, do nothing. If somebody spits in your face, do nothing. And I say, when they spit, you hit. Do whatever you want. You do whatever the hell you want. I watched it so sick it made me. For 4 years, I had to sit home and watch people screaming at policemen and spitting in their face, and they weren't able to do anything. They just had a grin and bear it. They're standing up like a piece of steel. And a woman, in many cases, women, you can see they're professional agitators. I had one the other night. I had 4 the other night, all in one group, total phonies. I started to scream when I got into a restaurant, something with Palestine. And I said, well, I'm doing a great job for peace in the Middle East. I should get lots of awards for that, right? With the Abraham Accords and everything else. But a woman just stood up and started screaming. And she got booed out of the place, too. There were a lot of people in the restaurant. I went there to show how safe, and it was safe. I mean, the woman is just a mouthpiece. All she was a paid agitator. And you have a lot of them. And I've asked Pam to look into that in terms of RICO, bringing RICO cases against the criminal RICO, because they should be put in jail. What they're doing to this country is really subversive.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to show you the exciting full circle here. President Trump now designating Antifa as a terrorist organization in honor of Charlie and good. How far we've come in strength and common cause since this moment, about 5 years ago, when Joe Biden said this.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization. Oh, you got it. Not militia. That's what his FBI, FBI director said. Well,
Antifa is an idea, not an organization. Got it. Okay. Yeah, tell us the people who have been hit in the head with bricks, rocks, sticks, cement, as our friend Andy No has been, for instance, and many others. Ladies and gentlemen, the cities that burned at the hand of Antifa, tell that to those who were attacking Kyle Rittenhouse and trying to take his life and trying to kill Kyle. Remember that story? Of course not. Of course not. Left-wing violence. We'll never be able to talk about it. And that's the real problem here, isn't it? The real problem was that Jimmy Kimmel couldn't come to terms with left-wing violence. Couldn't come to terms with his own side. Couldn't police his own side. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a very, very funny. We can't end the program without this hysterical Brian Stelter and some breaking news about Jimmy Kimmel's future at ABC. It's very interesting. But we have to salt that lib. It's been a salty week, and so we're going to be salting our libs here, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very salty Brian Stelter sobbing and crying about our show. And it's going to be good. And first off, before we get to that, please put a little salt onto your investment portfolio. Please put a little bit of salt into making sure that you have a investment future. My friends at Allio Capital can ensure that your capital and your investment, no matter how small or massive or whatever you got for scratch, that it's working for you. You got to make sure that money makes money. That's how people get, well, stable in life. You got to make sure that your portfolio is working for you. Most of us aren't stock traders or day traders. Most of us don't know what they're doing, like me. I don't think anyone really knows what they're doing. But Allio Capital has an AI that tracks market trends. You know, they lowered the Fed's fund rate yesterday by just a little bit. Anyway, the point is that this app is here to track those trends, inflation rates, political, social, and economic news. These are the kind of things that shift where global risk is and where opportunities are. Allio Capital invests and adapts your portfolio in real time, making macro or micro investing easy for anyone to understand. Download their app in the App Store at Google Play or text my name, Benny, to 511-511. That's ALLIO Capital. Text Benny to 511-511 and download the Allio Capital app today. 511-511 today. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Stelter's Salt That Lib. And this is the breaking news out of CNN. According to Brian Stelter, Jimmy Kimmel is most likely not going to return to his show. He's just going to be done. He was already talking about being done. Ladies and gentlemen, exciting salt for all of us. Please get your salt shakers out and let's rock and roll. Here we go. Salt That Lib.
But even though we're talking about comedy, this is so serious, Aaron. Yeah. America is a less free place if late night comedians cannot do and say what they want. Of course, they can be tuned out. People can change the channel. That's how we vote. That's how we have our say in America. But this really does have a chilling effect across the American media. And it's not just me saying it. We've heard from the group FIRE in the past few minutes, the free speech group FIRE, saying, quote, the government pressured ABC and ABC caved. Quote, we cannot be a country where late night talk show hosts serve at the pleasure of the president, but until institutions grow a backbone and learn to resist government pressure, that is the country we are. And just one more note, Aaron, I've heard from Brendan Carr in the past few minutes. He's very pleased about Nexstar deciding to preempt the show. He has not officially reacted to ABC's decision yet. But when I told him about ABC's decision to go ahead and basically, this is a cancellation unless the show ever comes back, he did send me a GIF. He sent me a celebratory meme as his reaction, Aaron.
Now, we got to show the meme. Whoa, producers, tell me we have the meme. Klein, tell me the meme's in the script. ALX, we got to show the meme. You can't have that as the Salt That Lib show without the meme. Let's go, boys. Let's go. Come on. Stelter posted it. No. Stelter. No. Stelter. ALX, come on. Don't send me out like this. Goodness. Team. You know I love you all, but come on. Come on, too easy here. Got to show the meme. Scroll down, please. There you go. Now click on it. There you go. Thank you. Forgive this very rare lapse in production. Here we go. This is the Brian Stelter meme. Click on the tweet, please, Klein. Thank you. I asked FCC Chair Brendan Carr if he had any comment now that ABC has pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show, and all he sent me was this GIF. This is me and Brendan Carr right now. This is my post. Oh, yeah, baby. We don't deserve this timeline. It's been a tough week, man. It's been the darkest week of my life. And we've done our level-headed best to try and keep a stiff upper lip, to try and keep our heads held high, to hold the side up, as they say. It hasn't been perfect. But we've shown up for Charlie in the best way we know how. The way that he would have wanted, which is not to be blubbering, weak, selfish, basket case. Not our time to cry. But instead, to be someone who stands resolute with the clear mission of cultural victories for the good and moral people of this land, nation, America. And that's what we have encouraged everyone here to be. And we ask for your prayers as we travel to Phoenix today to honor Charlie. Well done, good and faithful servant. Speaking of honoring Charlie, we're going to raid on over to Charlie's Rumble stream here. There it is. Rumble at Charlie Kirk. Megyn Kelly in the studio with Andrew Colvett today. And head on over there and go ahead and watch our verse of the day here in remembrance of Charlie. And we will have a show tomorrow. We will be broadcasting live from Turning Point USA tomorrow. So we'll have a show tomorrow as well. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. Boy, we're going to take that verse out to its logical conclusion. We have some big things coming. We have some exciting announcements. There's going to be a lot happening. Get ready. We're just getting started. For you, Charlie. It's your boy, Benny. Remember, in the end, we go over to Charlie's stream and watch it. See ya.
A whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny, that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.